Hey, what's going on? Today we're going to cover the weapon metas that I build specifically for ARs today. Here on the screen is my stats. I've been playing since day one, basically, since the beta's come out, so hopefully that gives whatever I'm going to show you guys some credibility. And you're always welcome to give me feedback on the attachments or different builds that you guys use. By all means, please let me know in the comments below. But anyways, jumping into it, going to the assault rifles. Now, as you guys have known that fairly recently, assault rifles got a hit to their dispersion penalties, so they're not as viable right now as the SMGs and LMGs. Even the DMRs do pretty well against them at mid-range fights, so they still have their place and they do fairly well when you play correctly with them. But as of right now, until LMGs get hit with their nerf that is supposed to be coming fairly soonish, I'm kind of just stuck with them feeling like mediocre, lackluster, they're just underperforming in my opinion right now. But could be a skill issue, could just be me, I don't know. But anywho, running into the M5 loadouts, I almost feel as if having short barrel on this thing is a requirement to make this thing do well. Now, back in the day, the close combat rounds used to be the meta, and there still is a place for this if you play super aggressive and you want that super fast, like AEK RPM, right? You get 910 with this with the short barrel. But for most cases, I've seen the standard rounds do better overall for consistent damage at range wise, things like that. Even playing slightly aggressive with this, you're still doing just as well as I think you would with the close combat rounds. But I don't really have anything else to kind of compare this to, really. This used to be one of my favorite ARs to use until they got hit with this nerf. So, and then again, for me personally, I use lasers for all of my weapons because I play super aggressive. I play in a high sensitivity, so most of the time when I get into an up-close fight, I don't want to ADS and overcorrect, so I use this for the hip fire. And then I've got these attachments as backup in case I ever use them. I generally don't run through the other attachments that I have in my plus menu, but it's always beneficial to have them just in case, because this is probably one of the most adverse utility kits that you have in the game. Even if you don't think you're going to use it, it's still nice to have in the plus menu, because if you're in game and the situation arises, you're like, oh yeah, I have this and I can switch to that. But anyways, so that's what I run on it. But again, if you don't like the laser and you're more of a aimer per se, if you're gonna do a bunch of 80 strafing or left-right movement on your left analog stick, LWG is gonna be your meta grip for all that. And then if you're more of a passive sit-back type fire type of guy, the BCG is gonna be your meta option. So right, you see that the LWG gives you accuracy while moving, BCG gives you accuracy while static. So if you're toggling AD or left, right on the analog, you're triggering your movement. So this gives you a movement buff, okay? If you are gonna run a barrel attachment, from what I've been told for console, the Warhawk comp is your go-to. And then for PC, if you're really having a hard time with recoil control, the champion muzzle brake is always a good default. The TAC comp is the technical meta attachment for most ARs on PC, but if you're struggling with recoil at the start, there's nothing wrong with the champion muzzle brake to kind of help that. And then as you get better with recoil control, switch over to the TAC comp, see if that feels a little better. And if it doesn't, you know, so on and so forth, move on, and you can try the Warhawk comp on PC, see how it feels for you. Overall, at least for the M5, I don't see any other reason not to use a short barrel though. Going on the AM40, the AM40 does slightly better than the M5. I think personally, when I've been running both of them, this also still has a 2 bullet to kill range within 10 meters, right? If you're playing this hyper aggressive, you get up close, you land 2 headshots, they drop. So that's nice. M5 doesn't do that, but this is what I run for it. I've been switching between factory barrel and the champion muzzle brake just to get this. This AR still has a slight weird horizontal recoil wonkiness to it. It's not nearly as bad as it was when it came out, but for me, the champion just kind of feels like it fits for this. It could just be a placebo thing, but I either run that or the wrap suppressor if I'm trying to hit a flank or whatever. And then again, this is what I mean by utility, right? So like default, I play with this, but if my shots feel slightly off, I'll go to the fact barrel. Because for whatever reason, for me, sometimes the factory barrels feel better than having the champion or, you know, something else. And then if I'm going to go hit a flank, I'll switch to this just so I'm more quiet. And again, the laser, and you got the 2 grips down here. For the AK, a little disappointed in the nerf. The AK got an additional dispersion penalty to its spread after the nerf initially, and I'm not really sure why, but here we are. I never really had an issue with people beaming me with the AK or ever felt that the AK was overpowered the way it is. It's got a decent rate of fire, and it was okay. It was a good mid-range weapon. That's what it was meant to be, and so it got an additional, I believe, 15% dispersion on top of the already 20% dispersion. Well, I have to look at the numbers again, but anywho. Bottom line, this thing has up to like, I think 35% dispersion once you get below half mag. And again, just so you guys are aware how the dispersion penalty works, it doesn't start until you get down to the half mag. So if you have 40 round mag, once you get down to the 20 rounds, that's when your dispersion really starts to go. Or you can just tap fire. Tap firing actually works. Not as good as it does in previous titles, but it's there. It's good enough. Compared to what it was when they first did the dispersion, the tap fire wasn't resetting properly. So now that does well, and it's kind of viable. So, but anyways, this is how I run my AK. The only difference if you're playing Assault, so like if you're playing McKay, Dozer, whatever, the drum mag is going to be your better option because the reload speed between these two aren't that different, and you get 3 extra of these in reserve, where if I'm playing Fall because I made medic, I only get 1 of these in reserve, so I'm constantly trying to find ammo if I do this. That's why I use the extended mag, because I get the extra ammo in reserve, and I'm only losing 10 rounds, so it's not the end of the world for me. Same thing again, I run the laser for everything, and I've got these as backups, but again, you just got the grips if you want to play more with grips instead of hip fire. Oh, and just as we go through all this stuff, guys, your optics, so like anything that I run for optics, I always run 125s, either Fusion or K8s. That's just my default. And then if you like to have higher optics, like 3x, 4x, whatever, that's fine. It's all personal preference. There's no like quote unquote meta optic for these rifles. It's all personal preference. And then, yeah, so for the SCAR, I don't see any reason not to use the drum mag. I've got the standards in case. Wrap suppressor is always on this thing. I don't know why, it just feels good to me, because essentially the wrap suppressor is like running the factory barrel. I just lose some bullet velocity. Not gonna kill me. I've been using the wrap suppressor on the SCAR basically since the weapon got a buff way back in the day, where it was, you know, a 2-tapping machine up to 75 meters at one point. So, and then for the grenades, the only thing I would possibly change out of this is instead of the smoke grenade, you could use the incendiary. But because I play medic, I have this in my back pocket in case I'm running out of smoke grenades in hand. And then AP for vehicles, HE for people. Pretty straightforward. AC-42 did get a buff to its dispersion penalty, meaning it has less. So that was good. Also keep in mind, the SCAR did get hit with the additional dispersion penalty as well. So it's a bit wonky after the half mag. So AC-42, I'm going to be honest with you, on the AC-42, the barrel attachment doesn't matter. I actually run the wrap suppressor more than the champion muzzle brake because I like being more quiet. But there is no real recoil to this. It's the only bullpup in the game. And it's burst fire. If you do it correctly, you can kind of shoot this at full auto. So the rate of fire, it says 480, is not true. It's actually 1200. And it's 1200 if you can chain the trigger delay correctly. But if you're just doing normal, then that's what you'll get is 480. But it's not actually 480. So I don't have an older picture of it saying 1200 uses. So, and I actually have a video way further back in my beginning days of posting videos on how to do this correctly. But in any case, for the attachments, again, laser and your grips, you've got bottom barrel attachments if you want these too, right? So the ARM 68, and I will still tell you the ARM 68 does well, like over the top well at times. So this is still a viable choice. It does good damage. It's still a 4 BTK out to 30 with the standard rounds, and it's a 2-shot headshot. Okay. For the barrel attachments, I don't see any reason why you would use anything other than the short barrel or the standard barrel for this guy, because they both have built-in suppressors. And the gun basically has no recoil. So I don't really see a reason to run any sort of barrel attachment to help with recoil or whatnot. It's on there just because, but I never really use it. And then I have my laser. You've got the blue and the green. For whatever reason, the stat line for the green laser is better than the blue. Who actually knows why? But anyways, and then I've got my grip down here and HE if I need it. But I prefer the standard rounds on this guy. Unfortunately, the high power doesn't have an extended high power, right? So, and then the close combat rounds, if you want to bump up the rate of fire by, it only gives you an extra 20. Cool, but there is no 4 bullet kill range with close combat rounds. It's just with this guy and this guy. So this will always be a 5 at minimum, or 6. Once you get past 30, I believe it's 6. And then the new G36, or the GU, we call it the GU. Again, factory barrel, I only put the suppressor on this guy with the laser. And I actually switched off of the standard rounds to the high power. Now you notice that you get a pretty big rate of fire hit for this. It goes from 750 to 700, but that's okay because it's still faster than the AK. And you're consistently 5-shotting people more often with this than I was with this. So that's why I did that. And then I got subsonics in the back if I need them, but there is no heavy suppressor to match with subsonics, just so you guys know. So you're not going to get the benefit of subsonics because there's no heavy suppressor for it. And so the reload speed between the high power mag and the standard mag is not that far off to where I feel like I'm constantly reloading and running out of time to reset and get back into the gunfight that I was in. So that's why I switched back to this. And I was being way more consistent with the high power than the standard, because the standard, for whatever reason, for me, felt like it was just blooming out like crazy. Could just be me, but that's how I felt. And again, my standard 125 scopes, blue laser. The M16, I'm a little disappointed this doesn't have a fusion hollow, but the Cobra sight's fine. You also have a thermal for it and whatnot. I personally don't see a benefit to running anything besides factory barrel for myself. I guess I would say run, TAC comp on PC or champion muzzle brake, and then Warhawk comp for, controller. But I've been running factory barrel on this thing pretty much since it came out. I was actually running the heavy barrel before we got all-out warfare attachments. So, and you've got a huge arsenal of underbarrel attachments, but again, you've got all of these. But if you're going to aim, BCG, LWG. Unfortunately, there's no other magazines, weapon types, ammo types for this guy. So you're kind of stuck with standard rounds. It would have been neat to see high power or even subsonics or armor piercing. I don't know, something else to be here just than the the standard issue, right? So yeah. This guy, the ACW got a silent buff to its damage and the magazine size, right? This says 36, ignore that, it's actually 40 in-game. But there's no real attachments besides the Warhawk comp and a factory barrel with the wrap suppressor for me. You got a pretty decent selection of optics here, and then there's no real underbarrel attachments because this doesn't work for me. Accuracy while static, that's not how I play, so that doesn't work. I don't want a flashlight. I don't know. I really don't understand the reason for a bipod unless you're, one of those guys who lays prone all the time. But not a whole lot of options for this. I'm a little disappointed with that. So yeah, that's pretty much how I built it. There's nothing else to do, really. 891, same thing. The underbarrel attachments are almost non-existent, right? I get a laser and the foregrip, which doesn't work for how I play. So ammo type, still the same thing. It does have better barrel attachments, right? You got TAC comp, Warhawk, and some suppressors, but outside of that, that's really it. It's a bit disappointing. M4, I wish this was better. I keep hoping this gun would be good because it was good in BF4. No, it's just not good. It's a pea shooter. Even after the buff to the base damage, it still feels like a pea shooter. And again, it's got a bunch of underbarrel attachments. It's got no barrel attachments, and then, no mags, right? So it's like, I almost feel like they kind of skimped out on some of the attachments based on the barrels or the under on some of these portal weapons, but okay. I mean, sure. What am I gonna do? That's how I run it. Still don't recommend using it. Also, the MTAR is one of the weapons that did get a hard nerf on the dispersion, and it is kind of crazy at how fast I watch it happen because it has such a high rate of fire. This is one that I actually do use the Warhawk comp on, solely because there is no champion muzzle brake, and it has all these heavy suppressors, which is funny to me that it has all these heavy suppressors and no subsonic rounds. So why am I getting heavy suppressors for this guy and not getting subsonic rounds? Anyways. And then laser or the LWG, okay? I personally don't use the MTAR. I don't think it's good at all on mouse and keyboard. For PC players, this thing is kind of meh. Same thing with the AEK. Both are meh to me, really, because these both got hit with an additional dispersion penalty too. This has a champion muzzle brake, which feels nice for it. K hollow looks pretty good for it too. Again, all no ammo types there. There's some barrel attachments, and then you got under barrels, right? You got these guys, but that's really it. Again, there's no LWG, BCG. It's just that doesn't help with how I play, so the only option I have is a laser sight. I don't know why you'd use a flashlight almost ever in this game, but hey, more power to you. So that's all I got, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this versus that barrel, whatever, you know what I mean? Or if I'm just totally wrong, you can be like, hey, I use this instead for this reason, so blah, blah, blah. I'm always open to the feedback, guys, so I appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya!